again and welcome back. If you're new, then hello, nice to meet you, and if you are returning, thank you very much. I have to apologise first of all because I was being like, oh, skincare Saturday and Sunday, and then last weekend I didn't post anything. Sorry about that. To be honest with you, because over the last couple of weeks we've been allowed to travel a little bit further, I have found time to actually go and visit my mum, which has been really nice, and the weather over the east side of the country was much nicer last weekend, so I was doing that. I'm not going to fucking apologise for it. It's the truth. I was away visiting my mum, just having some nice family time, and actually over the last kind of 7 days I've found myself not watching as much kind of YouTube, not being on Instagram as much. I'm not going to sit and be like, oh, I'm having like a social media holiday. No, none of that shit. I've still been on it, but not as frequently, just because I've been doing other things. Also, I went back to work to the wards over the last 2 weeks as well, and my brain's been getting around that a wee bit as well. I mean, obviously now, currently where I work, there is no active corona in my actual ward, but that can change hour to hour, day to day. But while I've been there, it's been okay. So I'm not gonna sit here being like, oh, stressful, now having to go to a ward to deal with coronavirus, when my colleagues have worked in wards throughout this. I'm not gonna fucking sit here and be that guy. But it has took a little bit of getting used to it. It took a little bit of learning again, because I have not been there during this. I have been in more protected areas and doing a different job during that time. Anyway, irrelevant to this video, but just so you know, I didn't upload a video because I just kind of was like, do you know what? I am not on a strict regime. I think you all know that. I try and do it as and when I can, and I'm hoping anybody that watches these and have been commenting, liking, and kind of giving me a bit of feedback on them, they seem to be really enjoying them, and thank you very much for doing that, and I'm sure you'll be very understanding as to why I just didn't do it last weekend. This video is going to be about vitamin C. It is a follow-up to the antioxidants video that I did post a couple of weeks back. To be honest with you, vitamin C is an antioxidant, but this video is going to be more to do with going into detail about vitamin C and the ones I have tried. So if that sounds like your kind of thing, then please keep watching. My hair is getting so long. I know there'll be lots of people be like, it's not long at all, but I get like, this is how much it's not holding a curl now. My hair usually is curly and it will sit like up a bit, and it's just getting so long. It really needs a little trim now, but I've not booked in. I'm still like, I'm gonna keep my distance for a bit longer. Having long hair is not gonna kill me. Anyway, so like button, subscribe button, all that shit is down below. You can follow me on Instagram here. It is the same as my channel name if you fancy doing that, grand. Otherwise, let's talk about vitamin C. So, vitamin C, as I said before in my other antioxidant video, is an antioxidant. It helps scavenge for free radicals. Again, we spoke all about this in that video. Please go and check it out if you can. It will give you like a basis of what I'm talking about on this. But vitamin C is a little more complex than we probably really understand. As I said in that video, you know, you can eat an orange every week, every day, whenever you want to do it, and you'll probably get enough vitamin C, enough antioxidant in your body to be doing the job of helping deter free radicals and kind of invasive oxygen species, no, reactive oxygen species in the body. I actually read the other day somewhere that the body can only use up to 100 milligrams of vitamin C antioxidant. So eating copious amounts or taking supplements for vitamin C is pretty pointless, to be honest with you. I had read that somewhere. Again, there are lots of nuances. There'll be things to rebut and retaliate against that. But I read that and I thought, well, that kind of stands to what I had already said, and there's no point in sitting eating 4 oranges, you know, and then you're like, I'm getting my vitamin C, when you could just have one and the body will do the job for you. Oh, I feel like I'm shaking my table a lot. Too close, sorry. So what is it that vitamin C claims it does? Well, there are a lot of lab-based studies, a lot of research has been done into vitamin C, and as I say, vitamin C is much more complex than we probably first realised on the surface of it, like an orange. The best way I can try and describe this without being too scientific, because again, I don't want to be too blah blah blah, not talking any sense to anybody, is if you make a cup of tea, you need hot water or boiled water, you need a tea bag, you need milk if you take it, maybe sugar if you take it, maybe your cup of tea, you like just tea with a bit of lemon and honey. Up to you, however you like your tea. But the combination of a cup of tea, for me personally, hot water, tea bag, milk, 3 things. Vitamin C is made up of a lot of different things. I could list off some of those ingredients just now. I think one is tyrannase, but again, we know that my pronunciation of things is not fantastic, so I'm just going to put a little list here of what a compound of vitamin C is really made up of. The one that we are interested in with regards to skincare is ascorbic acid. This is the one that you hear quite a lot about. This is the one that if I am looking at a vitamin C product, I look to see if there is ascorbic acid in it. You get 2 types of ascorbic acid. I think you get L-Ascorbic, which is ordinary one that I've got up there, or you get D-Ascorbic. But that is not usually used in skincare. It's not one we usually hear about. But for the purpose of this video, we will be looking at L-Ascorbic acid, and that is one of those components. So in your cup of tea, the L-Ascorbic acid is like the milk, or the hot water, or the tea bag, but it is not all of it. Does that make sense? So you're thinking your cup of tea made up of lots of different things, vitamin C made up of a lot of different things, and the L-Ascorbic is one of those components. So as I was saying, there are a lot of laboratory-based studies and research that show L-Ascorbic acid works for anti-aging, for pigmentation, scavenging free radicals, UVA, UVB damage, which is kind of the same thing, and for collagen boosting, like collagen boosting properties as well. The thing about a lot of these studies, as I said in my last video, vitamin C or L-Ascorbic acid is probably the most researched one with regards. I feel like I am guru in this video at the moment. Every word that comes out, I'm like, girl, like what the fuck is wrong with me? It's because I've not filmed in a week, that's what's wrong with me. L-Ascorbic acid is the most researched one. And the problem with this is that in these laboratory studies and research papers, these articles that have been written, a lot of them show that there is good basis in this research. So we know there is a lot of research being put into this, and a lot of it is backed up, it's evidence-based, it's great. But these are all laboratory-based studies. They aren't necessarily, you know, we took 1,000 people, asked them to try this, and this physically showed these products worked on human skin. There is a minority of studies that do show that, but in comparison to the amount of laboratory studies done, they are much smaller. It's a much smaller amount. So if you're looking at kind of really good evidence-based, really good peer-blind, reviewed, like qualitative and quantitative data on vitamin C working within human skin as a skincare topical ingredient, they are not as widely available as the scientific studies on what vitamin C actually does in a petri dish. Petri dish? You know what I mean. Test tube, if you want to say that. That is something that I think has to be thought about. In saying all of that, I love vitamin C. I do use it, and I find it really beneficial to my skin, so I will continue to use it. But I thought I should say that because I do think there's a lot of kind of nuances. There's a lot, that's a word that I've started to use a lot recently. I'm really sorry if I say it more than once in this video. But there's a lot of differences. There's a lot of reasons as to why people would say this is absolute nonsense, and actually this actually shows really good data and evidence that vitamin C is a good thing for the skin. Another thing to remember about vitamin C is that it oxidizes very easily and very readily. If it is exposed to natural sunlight or oxygen, then it can become more unstable. Because of this kind of rapid oxidization, or the ease of it oxidizing, it means that it can become unstable really quickly. This can mean that it becomes kind of much more irritating to the skin. It can also mean that it's not going to do the job it's supposed to. To be honest with you, that is an issue, and that's why a lot of companies have derived a lot of different types of formulas of vitamin C in a in a means to try and stabilize it, putting it in different different creams, but that's a very simple way of saying it. Putting it in different formulas, putting it in different, you know, you get serums, you get moisturizers, you get like silicone based stuff, you get oils, like all this different kind of stuff, sprays as well, stuff like that. But they've tried to formulate it in such a way that it deters it degrading and oxidizing. But it is very important to remember that, because if you're spending a lot of money on something, let's say the Drunk Elephant one that costs you 90 odd quid, then you don't want to be using that product and all of a sudden, you know, you've been using it for a month and now it's coming out yellow, all the pack's all yellow, your skin's getting irritated by it, and you kind of think, I spent 90 quid on this. So for that, and I'm not saying that's what the Drunk Elephant one does, I'm just using that as an example because it's quite an expensive one. So it is something to remember. It's difficult. For that reason, I would always say try and pick something that's relatively affordable, quite cheap, and is a decent percentage, which moves me on to what percentage you should be using. Again, I'm very on the fence about this. A lot of research and paperwork says basically anything kind of above 10%. Now you do get ones at 8%, you do get ones at 5%, but I think the number, the average might be around about between 8 and 20% is a better range. So if you see ones that are 10, 15, 20, I would say go for them. With that being said, the one that I use is 100%. Now, that makes me sit here as a bit of a fanny and being like, oh, you only need 20% because actually the skin will only take up so much. Yes, and most research says that. But the one I use is 100%, and I use it and mix it in with something, which I'm going to put my hand up and say, I don't know if that then would make it a 10% solution or a 50% solution. But on the surface of it, from the most research that I have read, it says that the skin probably doesn't need anything over 20%, just so you know. So if you're seeing something and you think, oh, it's 80%, that'll be, oh, it costs me 100 quid because it's 80%, you probably don't need it. The 100% one from The Ordinary is relatively affordable, so I don't mind it. It works for my skin, and it is very potent, it's very strong, so I would be very wary when using it and make sure you know what you're mixing it with. We will go into that. But if you're just looking for a starter, I would say pick anything kind of 10%, don't spend too much money, and make sure the packaging it is in is appropriate. I also mentioned this with the antioxidants, should be in a dark or airtight packaging so that the oxidization telling you my words today, process does not occur so quickly. The other good thing about the 100% is because it is not already mixed into a formula, it means that you can use it as and when you need it. It doesn't mean to say that it will last forever. I think it's a 6 month, I'd have to pull it over, but I think it's a 6 month lifespan on The Ordinary one. I'm sure it is. Oh, I can't be arsed. I'm sure it is. Go and check it yourself. As I say, do not go with everything that I tell you. Always double check, always look for all options and all information and come to your own decision, be a critical thinker. But I'm sure that one is 6 months it lasts for once you open it. But it means that if you mix it in your hand with something, then you can use that and it's fresh right there and then. Don't mix it and keep it to use it at a later date. Like, there is no point in doing that because it defeats the purpose of it being a pure powder. I actually also wondered if that's what it meant by 100%. Like, it's 100% pure powder that's not going to degrade the way other ones would, rather than the strength. I hold my hands up, it's something I am unsure of. Now, as I said, most other companies, to avoid this oxidization process occurring, will mix it with other formulas such as ferulic acid. We spoke about that in the antioxidant one as well. That is something that really helps to stabilize vitamin C or L-Ascorbic acid. So you might see it conjoined quite a lot. There is a really expensive one from SkinCeuticals, I want to say. I think L'Oreal ended up copying it. There was a big hoo-ha blah blah blah. But the SkinCeuticals one gets a really good write-up. It also gets a lot of good, really, like dermatologists, scientific people, all that will also say it's probably the one that will work the most, but it's so expensive, and it isn't probably something that you or I or everyday guy could afford. So to be honest with you, I'm a bit like, okay, fine. But if you see vitamin C mixed in with ferulic acid, it's probably to help stabilize it. Another thing that you might have heard about, and I had said about oxidization again in the other video, is that the vitamin C goes this kind of yellow color. It absolutely does. I think actually I will pick that box up now because I'll be able to show you. So if you are using a vitamin C product and you've been picking it up with your hands in the package and that's all yellow outside like this, I don't know if you'll see that there, but I don't know if you can see the yellow staining on the box. And for anybody who's like, why do you keep the box? I keep the box, there's quite a lot of staining on the side there. I keep the box, I like to know the ingredients. And if you throw it away, it's not always on the actual tub, just so you know. So if you are using a vitamin C product and your packet is looking a bit like that, it does maybe mean that the oxidization has occurred. With that, it's mainly because I've had it on my hands and now that has been exposed on the outside of the packet to air, sunlight, oxygen, and the stuff on the outside of the packet is stained and became yellow. The powder inside is still absolutely white. There's no yellow inside the packet, and that's why it's important that it's kept in one of these airtight, darkened jars, like a glass jar. But what I will say, and I have my doubts about, or I have some questions about, is that when you put it on your face, you can get staining. You can get like this kind of yellow staining, maybe you look a little jaundiced, but in another sense, you might look a little more radiant. You might look like you have a little bit more of a tan. When we put fake tan on, we look a little healthier. We feel like we've been brought up to believe if you've got nice tanned skin, you're healthy. So sometimes I'm a little bit like, is putting on vitamin C, okay, we've got all the science, but if we don't definitely for sure know that it is able to penetrate the skin and the lipid barrier because it's water soluble, and that can be an issue at times, then do we know that the radiance that we're seeing and the brightness and the kind of more healthy glow that we are seeing is not just the staining of the skin? And when I say staining, I don't mean your skin will stay that colour. It will not. You can certainly wash your face and it should come away. If it doesn't, stop using it and your skin will regenerate and you will get fresh cells and it will eventually go away. It's not like you're going to be tattooed yellow like a bloody Simpson for the rest of your days. But it's something that I just it was brought to my attention, and I kind of thought, well, everybody thinks they look healthier with a tan, so maybe the reason why everybody's loving vitamin C and think that it's doing all this wonderful stuff for their skin is because actually the day after they use it, they look a little more glowy and a little bit more fake tanny. Just something to think about. It's something I certainly thought about. I definitely think it does have that effect. If I use it, I definitely think I look more radiant the next day. I definitely feel like my skin is a nice healthy glow to it. Is that because of the colour and the oxidization, or is it because of the penetrative effects? Penetrative? I don't know. Is it getting in and doing anything? Just want to say. As I mentioned there briefly, vitamin C is also water soluble. This means that when you do buy vitamin C within a product, when you buy like a serum or a moisturiser or a cream or something like that, then it is probably in a water type base. Not always, but sometimes. And that means that it might degrade, because if it's water soluble, it becomes more unstable, it degrades, blah, blah, blah. You have sunlight, you need to have the oxygen, you need to make sure it's in the right packaging. So when it isn't in the pure form, in the powder, you might find that it degrades quicker. And that is because that is a water soluble product. Another thing to think is that we have this lipid barrier that I've spoke of before. We have natural oils on the top of our skin. And there is some research to suggest that because it's a water soluble thing and oil and water don't necessarily mix, it will struggle to actually get into the skin. So far, I'm not being very positive about vitamin C, but I swear to God, like I use it all the time. I just like to be a bit more like, I like to be devil's advocate on these kind of things. Now with regards to that water solubility, vitamin C works much better at a lower pH. A lot of the things that I've read, on average, it is saying, and I say I have read, I don't want this to seem like as if I'm going through every skincare article or scientific research paper ever, because a lot of the time I do watch, like, you know, scientific cosmetologists, cosmetic cosmetologists and stuff like that as well. I listen to things like the EcoWell, etc. So I'm not like sitting studying everything. I don't, just so you know, I am a normal person and I work full time, so I don't have time to do that. But the general consensus is that a vitamin C or an L-Ascorbic acid should be a pH of 3.5 or lower, but obviously not so low that you're scarring your face off like, I don't know, hydrochloric acid or something like that. But 3.5 is the number that I've seen banded about quite a lot. The reason for that is essentially the lower the pH, the better it will be this getting into your skin, getting through that lipid barrier that I was speaking about. The reason for this, again, I'm gonna try and do a bit of analogy like my cup of tea earlier. So oil and water don't mix. We know that. Oil and water aren't happy together. They won't bond. If things are in oil and things are in water, they're not going to penetrate through each other. It's very, very difficult. It's nigh on impossible. As I've said, vitamin C is water soluble. So if you've got vitamin C like the powder or just a formula that's already made up and the basis of it is water, not only is the risk of it being oxidizing, degrading, etc., but also the water soluble vitamin C might not mix with the oils on your skin and the lipids on your skin, which sometimes can cause a bit of pilling, especially if you have more oily skin. You're going to find things don't want to work with it. But also that barrier is there to protect us and stop things getting in. So things that are waterproof us, essentially. So things are water soluble. It doesn't mean to say that that is going to actually penetrate through the skin. Having a lower pH, making it slightly more acidic, is almost like being on the guest list to a nightclub. So you're the water, the oil is the nightclub, and you ain't getting in. But you got the low pH guest list right there. And if you're on said low pH guest list, then ooh, we might just let you in. We might just let you penetrate through that lipid barrier and get a little deeper down to do the job where you're supposed to be doing it. That is probably the best way I can try and explain that. And that's what I'm going to stick to on that one. Lower pH with vitamin C is always slightly better for it to be more effective. Now let's talk about types of vitamin C and the types for different skins. As I said before as well, I pretty much was working my way down the Ordinary's product list. So I am going to touch on some of their vitamin Cs. Some I have used before, obviously the L-Ascorbic Acid 100% I use quite frequently, but I have tried other ones. But I thought I would do a bit of research into the other vitamin Cs that they use, they have, and tell you about them and as much as I know about them, and some of the other ones from other brands that I've used over the years. Now as for the L-Ascorbic powder, the one that I use, I speak about quite a lot, you can mix this with oil-based things or water-based things. There's things like I wouldn't go adding the L-Ascorbic powder to the retinol that's in squalene or anything like that, even though that's kind of an oily based type thing. I wouldn't go doing that because it already has an active ingredient in it. But you can add it to oils such as vitamin E, and I think I've seen Cassandra Bankinson say that the bee oil, is it from The Ordinary? And I'm sure if you go into The Ordinary website they will say this can be mixed with this, if you can be bothered reading through all of it. The bee oil is one that's quite nice to mix along with the ascorbic acid. It has good antioxidant properties, so therefore it will almost aid the vitamin C in the job it needs to do. It helps with the scavenging of free radicals. I spoke about the Pycnogenol in the last kind of video that I done, saying that I would consider kind of using that as well, and I have to say at this point in time I have tried that because it is like an oily based liquid. I'm not saying it's definitely an oil, it is an antioxidant, but I thought I'm going to add a couple of drops to this to my powder, which made it a little more paste-like as opposed to a watery substance, and I smoothed that all over the skin with my vitamin C a few nights ago. It can be quite irritating, especially the pure powder. It can be quite irritating, tingling, almost a little bit stinging on the skin. If it becomes like you cannot stand it, then I would say wash your face, remove it from your face, maybe even use a bit of bicarb soda on your face to neutralise that. But I found on my skin it was okay. Again, this is where it comes down to, you've got to do what is best for your skin. You should patch test, and I did that before I put it anywhere near my face. I done a little patch test with the Pycnogenol, because that is also a very potent liquid, and I used it with a little bit of the powder and patch test it, which I didn't react to, and I felt quite comfortable then applying it to my face, and it worked quite well for me. The other thing that it can be mixed with is the resveratrol and ferulic acid. I wasn't sure of that, but I'm sure someone commented in my last video saying how it actually is on the Ordinary website to say that they do advise to use them together. I have not done that personally, but it's certainly something I would look into now. I think I'd seen other people saying like using that alongside the L-Ascorbic acid would work really nicely, but it could be very irritating. But because it's in, again, more of kind of like an oily based solution, using oils is always less irritating than using something that is a water soluble product when you're using this powder. It almost, because it doesn't totally dissolve in oil, because water soluble, it might leave it a little gritty, a little bit chunky on the skin, so you have to be aware of that. Especially if you're going to put something else on top of it, you've got to leave a lot of time in between, otherwise you're just going to have that pilling and balling up all over your face. But it does leave it more like kind of, I've enjoyed it using it in oil, I'm not going to lie. Like using it in the oil, I feel gives me a little bit of added kind of layer, not moisturising as such, but some oils can be moisturising. We'll get into moisturisers and hydrators, that's going to be the next video. But some oils can be moisturising as well as being kind of occlusive and you know, that oil and water barrier. But because it doesn't completely dissolve, the powder, it sits on top of the skin and sits there for longer, whereas in a water soluble product it will dissolve. So it might feel a little less irritating in the oil, but equally it won't completely break down in the oil and sit on top of your skin a little bit more. Make of that what you will. So as I have just said, mixing the L-Ascorbic powder with something of a water base, you might want to mix it with like your marine hyaluronics, your alpha arbutin, anything like that that has an aqua in the first ingredient, water as the first ingredient, will be more irritating. I think that's something you have to remember. It says if you're someone who's got sensitive or broken skin, you shouldn't be using this on broken skin for a start. If you have open areas on your skin, avoid it because it will nip. It will be very, very sore, and can actually lead to kind of over pigmentation. It will make it worse sometimes. So just be very aware that you shouldn't be putting it on broken skin. But water-based products using a water-based product with this powder to mix it can mean it's more irritating. Personally, again, it does nip a little bit, but my skin appears to be relatively hardy, and I've found that it hasn't caused me to react if I use it with a water-based product. Now, I've seen two kind of areas, I'm not too sure, I've seen different people speak about it, of what to mix the L-Ascorbic acid with. I have seen people saying that the marine hyaluronics, which is a humectant, is a really, really good product to use. But I was under the impression that the marine hyaluronics also has salicylic acid in it. Hold on, I'll just check. Yeah, it does. It definitely, this is the marine hyaluronics. It does have salicylic acid in it. So for me personally, I have used this to mix the powder with, but I'm not the biggest fan of a salicylic acid all over my face. So I gave this a go, and I probably will use it again with the powder, but it's not something I would frequently use. I would prefer to use the alpha arbutin, which I do not have to hand at the moment, but alpha arbutin, again, we can talk about it in another video if you want to know. But alpha arbutin is something that is widely known to help with kind of pigmentation and discoloration in the skin. In some parts of the world, alpha-arbutin can be like alpha-arbutin products or stuff that has alpha-arbutin in it is marketed as a lightening and whitening cream. I'm not wholly on board with that because I don't think people should be made to feel that they need to lighten or whiten their skin to be perceived as beautiful. That's my personal opinion. But I know in certain cultures, such as maybe Korean beauty, in that area of the world, that Korean beauty especially is like having very flawless kind of white and light skin is seen to be more beautiful, and it is something that a lot of Korean beauty products will use alpha-arbutin. It's something that I would quite like to look into actually. Our alpha-arbutin really interests me, but not so that I would have whiter skin. I'm pretty fucking peely while I'm white anyway. But because areas like this where I still have difficulty with, I would like to target, I don't know if that's possible, but I would quite like to try alpha-arbutin strong products there from Korean beauty brands, and it is something that I'm currently looking into. But there is this part of me that's on the fence. Like, I don't necessarily think things should be marketed in such a way that having whiter skin makes you more beautiful. It should be marketed more that this product helps with uneven skin tone, maybe, if you're worried about that, or pigmentation issues. That's just a little side note there, but it's just something that I wanted to address because if you're talking about alpha-arbutin, I know that they are in a lot of products that say to whiten skin, and I'm not for that. That's not for me. The ordinary alpha-arbutin, however, do not say that. They say it's for pigmentation. But mixing it with that is what I like to do, and that is what would be my preferred choice. Things that I would say to avoid mixing with the powder solution: obviously things like acids. I wouldn't go mixing it in with acids because it's already a very, very irritant type of product. You do not need to be adding anything else that's going to make it more irritant. Niacinamide, I think I spoke about this in my very first video possibly, or the layering and mixing video. I wouldn't mix niacinamide with it, not because I'm potentially very worried that it's going to cause a reaction on my face, but because the texture of it is rotten. It's horrible and I don't like it, so I don't do it. And the other one is the EUK that I spoke about in the antioxidant video is not good to be mixed with this, and The Ordinary have stated that. The Ordinary also sell a vitamin C that's called ascorbyl glucosides, I think. This one is probably more suitable for people who have oily to more acne prone skin, but if you're dry and also acne prone, I suppose, as well. It's not got any oils or any silicones in it, so it helps that it's not going to be causing any great build-up, or if you already have really sebaceous skin, there's not going to be adding more oil to it. I'm not saying people with acne prone skin or overly oily or sebaceous skin shouldn't use oils. Actually, sometimes there's oils that really work very well, but for this ascorbyl glucosides, I would say it's probably catered more towards acne prone skin because it doesn't have oil and it doesn't have silicones either, which can be irritants for people who have acne breakouts. It's also very lightweight as well. Again, people who have overly oily or acne prone skin probably don't want to put anything too heavy on their skin, so it's very, very lightweight and it absorbs really quickly. But as I say, it can also work with dry skin who are prone to breakouts. The next one from The Ordinary is The Ordinary Vitamin C 30% in silicone. This is one that I have personally tried and personally really didn't like, and it's probably the one that is marketed mostly towards dry skin. Because it's really occlusive, it's really heavy and smoothing on the skin. People who have dry skin and maybe even flaky skin, it could be more marketed towards them because it's going to kind of layer over those dry and flaky bits. It's like if you've got plaster work that needs redone in your house. So if you've got broken, dry, cracked plaster and you smooth over it with a new plaster, and then it makes everything nice and like smooth on the top, that's probably like what silicone does. It's got dimethicone in it. I found it to be mildly mattifying as well sometimes. It just wasn't for me, but it can provide surface moisture as well as moisturizing into deeper layers with the ingredients that are in it. And obviously as well, it has the 30% vitamin C in it. Again, does it need to be 30% when a lot of papers basically say you only need 20? I don't know. Now people with oily skin would maybe find this just wouldn't play well with their skin at all because it has that silicone dimethicone base. Also when it's mixing with the oils that are naturally on your skin, and if you overproduce sebum, that might cause it to pill and ball up. I found it done that on my skin, and I'm probably someone that would say I'm more on the dry side. It depends on the time of year. Like I do get oily round about here, absolutely, in your kind of T-zone areas. But as well as that, I have like dry patchy bits in other areas. I get breakouts as well. I think I've got very much combination skin because I don't always have really like flaky and dry skin. But when it's really cold and I live in Scotland, it certainly can get that way. Again, I'm very bleached, sorry. It certainly can get that way. But that's why I like to use a more occlusive and thicker, heavy moisturiser. But I find I like to use ones that have hyaluronic acid and water and like nice, maybe things like glycerin and stearic alcohol, stuff like that. Stuff that's really heavy, moisturising, and is very heavy and occlusive, I usually like. But because the base of this one was silicone, it just made me feel like it was one of those old school primers that came out maybe 10 years ago when primers started to be a thing, and it was like properly, I felt a little mattifying. I also find the one from the Inky List is like that. I've tried their vitamin C as well, and I find these two products are very much like that. And again, maybe I'm wrong, maybe someone who has really dry flaky skin actually finds this vitamin C and the Inky List one to be really good. I didn't like either of them. They weren't for me, and I don't like that texture. I don't like the texture that is almost like pore filling. Even though it's occlusive, it's not. I want it to be occlusive and greasy. Does that make sense? I don't want it to be a kind of drying feeling. I felt that these were more drying on my face. I felt that they pilled up. I felt that it just didn't work for me. I didn't like them, and that's the reason why I wouldn't pick any of them up again. Now, another one that The Ordinary have is the ascorbic acid 8% with alpha arbutin, and as I said, something that mixes really well with vitamin C and ascorbic acid. This one is probably more suitable for people who are a little bit more oily because, again, you don't want to use something with silicones and heavy, occlusive kind of feeling to it. You don't want something with oils in it. This one is actually oil and water free, so for people who have oily skin, you actually might want that kind of anhydrous, or like that means like zero hydra, you know, is it Latin? I don't know, anhydrous, I can't remember. But it's not got any oil or water in it, but it does smooth on the skin a little bit like an oil, and then dries in and soaks in really quickly. So people with oily skin might really like that. It's also fairly strong though, so you have to be quite aware that if you do have oily but maybe more sensitive or sensitizing skin, again, just patch test everything before you go sticking it all over your face, to be honest with you. But I personally have never used this one. It's just one that I have read about, have looked up reviews on, and they chat about, but I've never used it because I wouldn't have ever said I had oily skin, so I've never tried it. Now there's two more from The Ordinary that I want to talk about. First of all is their MAP, or I think that's, oh god, something ascorbital, magnesium ascorbyl phosphate. And I just call it MAP now because it's easier for me to remember and I know what I'm talking about, even though nobody else probably will. This is a 10% MAP. MAP is basically something, as I've already said, vitamin C is very unstable. It's very difficult to make it stable and to stop it destabilizing in certain like formulas. So MAP was brought about as a means to stop that happening, as a more stable formula of vitamin C. You may have seen my Glossy video where I speak about their glow serum, and I said this doesn't have ascorbic acid in it, so is it pure vitamin C? Is it actually as good as The Ordinary one or the Inky List one? Because it's not actually pure ascorbic acid. What it had in it was the magnesium ascorbyl phosphate, and at that point in time, pure ignorance from myself, I didn't know that that was like this made version of a stable version of vitamin C. That is what is in the Glossier Glow formula. Is that what it's called? The glow serum they've got. Super Glow. Oh, my brain. The Super Glow formula, that is what is in that. And obviously this is one from The Ordinary as well. So it is kind of widely known as a renowned version of a vitamin C. What I would say about this is though, that the evidence on this one is even less than that of ascorbic acid. Also, it's more, more oily, is it? Basically, the penetration of this one is not as proven. It can't say that it's definitely going to do what it's going to do, and it is less potent than a lot of ascorbic acid. So, do I think the likes of the Super Glow from Glossier is going to do what the ascorbic powder or even the 30% vitamin C from The Ordinary is going to do? No, I don't. I think the one from the Glossier, now that I've looked back at it and looked at the ingredients again, has the vitamin C in there, so they can claim that that is their vitamin C serum, but it is MAP, and there is not enough evidence to suggest that MAP is effective, but it is a nice, like, smoothing, brightening and moisturising serum. But I wouldn't say that it's going to be as effective as the other vitamin C's I've spoke about, and for that reason I would never pick up the MAP from The Ordinary either. Even though it is very moisturising, it's probably one that's really good for people with more mature skin, people who are looking to do like fine lines, wrinkles, and make sure there's lots of moisture going into the skin, which is probably me, to be fair. But I just feel like, what's the point in me that I can use a good moisturiser for that? Why do I need a vitamin C that's probably not really got any effective vitamin C in it? It's got the MAP in it, but because it's a good moisturiser, I could just use an effective vitamin C and then use a really good moisturiser. That's kind of my thoughts on that. I'm not saying I'm right on that, but that's how I feel about it. There is another one from The Ordinary that is newer. It's called Ethylated Ascorbic Acid, 15% solution. I don't know enough about it, so I can't really talk to you about it. I would have to go and look it up. When I started making this video, I felt like, oh, I know all of The Ordinary vitamin C stuff. And then I was like, oh fuck, they've added another one. Why? So, to be honest with you, I don't know enough about it. I'll have to go and read about it to find out what the chat is with that one. I'm not sure at the moment. They also have the vitamin C's at 23% with hyaluronic acid spheres. Again, that is one I've also tried. Again, I did not enjoy it. That one is very similar to the Kiehl's vitamin C. I think they're in a relatively similar percentage range. Maybe the Kiehl's one is 15, 12 to 15, and that one's 23, so they're a wee bit out. But they're similar in the sense that they feel gritty on the skin. They have like little balls in it, and again, that might be because of the formula they are in. To stop them degrading, they don't want to put them in a solely water-based formula. They want to put them in something that's like more oil-based or silicone-based or anhydrous, whatever, so that the vitamin C stays stable for longer. I really enjoyed the Kiehl's one. I'm not going to sit here and deny it. It was a little gritty, but the formula it was in was really, really nice, and I really enjoyed using it. I don't know if it was like subconsciously, I just thought my skin looked better. Again, maybe it looked a little tanned, and I thought, yeah, that's nicer. But the one from The Ordinary that I tried, because I was like, well, I'd like to find a cheaper version of this Kiehl's one, was really gritty. I found it to be almost like facial scrub from Kylie gritty, and for that reason I didn't like it. I also found that pilled on my face as well. Again, maybe I'm just starting to realise that actually I have oily skin and not dry. I don't know. But to be honest with you, I just didn't enjoy it. I didn't think it was nice. I used it up, and it is affordable, and if I was going to say, like, you know, the Kiehl's price range is here and The Ordinary one is here, yeah, go for The Ordinary. But I didn't enjoy using it, so I wouldn't buy it again. The Kiehl's one I am yet to buy again, probably purely because of the price range of it. It just is a little bit expensive for what I'm happy to pay for a vitamin C. I'm glad I tried it, and if someone bought it for me for a gift, I would be thrilled because I really enjoyed using it. But I'll stick to my more budget friendly for vitamin C. There's some things that I'm like, right, I don't mind paying money for that, and then there's other things that I'm like, there's no need to. and that's why I've stuck to, so far, the ordinary L-Ascorbic powder. So I think that vitamin C, the 23% with the hyaluronic spheres, is probably the one that you hear talked about from the ordinary the most, but personally, I really didn't like it. And one of the other ones from the ordinary is the Ascorbic, now I need to look down at this because I can't say this, it doesn't roll off the tongue. Tetraisopalmitate, I think that's how you say it. The Ascorbic tetraisopalmitate is 20% with vitamin F. This one, again, is not one I have tried. I think this is the last one on the list. If I've missed any out, then let me know below. We can chat. But I think this is the last kind of vitamin C one on the ordinary site. And this basically has vitamin F in it to help, again, stabilize the vitamin C that's in it. It also helps it to be a bit more of a low irritation one. It's got an oil base. So again, if you've got really acne prone skin, this might not be for you, but its base is actually jojoba oil, which is a really, really good oil if you were to choose oils. And again, we will get into oils and hydrators, don't worry. But if you were to go by anything, a lot of, again, dermatologists or skincare experts, medical people, cosmetics cosmetologists, jojoba oil is actually one that is quite good for your skin and doesn't cause a lot of irritation, doesn't cause a lot of kind of allergy reactions and stuff like that, and is actually very, very good and moisturizing for the skin. So it helps kind of mimic the skin's lipid barrier, again, smoothing over, doing not the way silicone does, not like a plaster. This one was like, it softens and almost repairs that lipid barrier. The jojoba oil helps to smooth everything over and mimic the lipid barrier, which is really helpful because it helps with transepidermal water loss. For people who have got dry skin or really, really sensitive skin, so if you've got really sensitive skin, that usually means that that lipid barrier that I always speak about is broken. So it means that it's like not nice and smooth, and things can potentially get in there, which then are causing the sensitivity and the irritation. But if you've also got dry, flaky skin, that can occur. But you might have quite hardy dry skin, like I would claim to have. I get dry patches, but I don't get a lot of irritation. I don't feel my skin is overly sensitive to certain products, and I find I can use either really irritant products or things with fragrance in them quite readily, and my skin tolerates it. So even though I've got dry skin, I don't have sensitive skin. Now this tetraisopalmitate, Ascorbic tetraisopalmitate, because it has got that base of oil, should help people who have got sensitive skin, who have always been really worried about using vitamin C because it can be irritating. Because it's in the jojoba oil, it means you're getting some of your vitamin C, but it also means that it's keeping that barrier nice and like smooth and protected, and helps with water loss as well, which can essentially dry your skin out because you're not wanting the water to escape from your face. You want to keep it all in that skin. So I think that is everything that I've rounded up. I think this will be a slightly more lengthy video because I've spoken about other products that I've used. I did use another couple. I used a serum from It's Skin, and I used Skin Truth's vitamin C, neither of which I think are anything to write home about, so therefore that's why I've not really discussed them. Otherwise, I hope this has been good, and I'm really sorry I didn't get a video out last week. The next video is going to be oils and hydrators, so hopefully that'll become used to you as well, and I hope that you've enjoyed this video. Sorry it's been a bit more lengthy, but I do really enjoy it. It sounds like such a fucking geeky thing to say, but I do actually really, really enjoy reading up on things, and then I find like I have to discuss all of it. I can't just say, oh, here's this, this and this, because there's so many other arguments to or kind of ideas and research to show that actually maybe that wasn't the case, because as we know, everything that's on the front of packets is going to be marketing. So that is it for this one, and I'll see you all again next time. Bye.